Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 4 of Romeo and Juliet. We're going to be looking at the changing masculinity of Romeo and Juliet with a particular focus on Act 1. So get the title down and begin the starter. So define, in your own opinion, define a stereotypical male. And then the challenge is a stereotypical male the same as a 21st century male? And pause the video and we'll move on. Okay, so masculinity, also called boyhood, manliness, or manhood, is a set of attributes, behaviours, and roles generally associated with boys and men. Both males and females can exhibit masculine traits and behaviour. Traits traditionally cited as masculine include courage, independence, and assertiveness. An overemphasis on masculinity and power, often associated with a disregard for consequences and responsibility, is known as machismo or machismo. Being male does not equal being masculine. For example, me. So if you didn't get any of these associations of masculinity, please get them down now and we'll move on. So then, the next task is, in your own opinion, what do you think boys talk about in general, just stereotypically? In what way do they talk about these topics? And why do you think they talk in this way? Okay, so perhaps what sorts of things that you might come up with then are perhaps making jokes, talking about sport, talking about films, talking about friends, talking about girls, talking about their sex lives. So it could be male or female there. Um, so these are the sorts of things that stereotypically boys talk about. Okay, now these quotations that I put in front of you here are all spoken by men in Act 1. So what I wanted to explain to me is how are these lines stereotypical of men? So maybe create a summary. So how are these quotations stereotypical of men? I'll read them through. I strike quickly being moved. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. That shows thee a weaker slave, for the weakest goes to the wall. Women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. I will push Montague's men from the wall, and thrust his maids to the wall. I will show myself a tyrant when I have fought with the men. I will be cruel with the maids and cut off their heads. I am a pretty piece of flesh. My naked weapon is out. So, pause the video and explain how these lines could be considered stereotypical. Okay, so the sorts of things you probably would have come up with is the sense of violence in several of them, the idea of being honourable, okay? You've got the sense of not wanting to be seen as weak, talking about being aggressive towards women, and you've also got being considered a tyrant, being considered a leader. So it doesn't matter about the concept of being a good leader as long as you're a leader. I'm a pretty piece of flesh. You've got the confidence as well, and my naked weapon is out. So you've got the sexual jokes as well. So that's the sort of thing I'm hoping you guys came up with. In the next bit then, so I wanted to consider what might Shakespeare be trying to say about the way young men behave. Now, you could argue that he's trying to say that all men act this way and young men act this way, and it's something to be judged, something that's kind of reprehensible, but it's not really clear because whenever I've seen performances, it's been played for laughs. Let's have a look at the older gentlemen then. Now, are the older generations any different? What noise is this? Give me my long sword, and thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go. So again, you're seeing this violence between the characters, even in the older generations. Okay, so men have this sense of wanting to be honourable, wanting to be brave, but it tends to lead into aggression unnecessarily in Romeo and Juliet. Okay, so try and think to yourself what Shakespeare is trying to say about the way young men behave. Okay, so I wanted to consider these questions then as you answer this question. Why might Shakespeare have chosen to write a play with aggressive male characters in this play? Might he be trying to say something to the audience? How would an audience react to an outburst of violence in the very beginning, in the opening of the play? And do you think he is exaggerating or reflecting what went on around him? And which do modern films and programs do? And so I'd like to answer this question. So what might Shakespeare be trying to say about the way young men behave? That's your task. And I want you to think about those questions. Okay, pause the video. Okay, let's move on to Romeo then. After all this fighting, the prince threatens both houses to never behave that way again. Benvolio and Romeo's father, Montague, discuss Romeo's odd, melancholy, sad behaviour. So enter Romeo. Here are his quotations then. And I want you to consider your next task is going to be, how does Romeo subvert or go against the stereotype of masculinity? Let's have a look then. In sadness, cousin, I do love a woman. She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow. This love feel I that feel no love in this. Oh, teach me how I shall forget to think, out of her favour where I am in love. Love is a smoke raised with the fumes of sighs, being purged of fire sparkling in lover's eyes. Farewell, thou canst not teach me to forget. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor, that when she dies with beauty, dies with her store. Okay, so what I'd like you to look at with these quotations are how Romeo kind of goes against the stereotype of being the strong, aggressive, not really think about their emotions, that sort of representation of masculinity. How does Romeo go against that in these quotations? Okay, so pause the video and have a look at these quotations and explain how he goes against it. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one then. So, in sadness, cousin, I do love a woman. So he talks about being sad because a woman doesn't love him back. He talks about Cupid's an arrow, like him wanting her to feel the same love that he has. Okay, remember he's not talking about Juliet here. He's talking about Rosaline. Okay, who's also a Capulet. I think he likes to live on the dangerous side. This love feel I that feel no love in this. So he's feeling love, but he's not enjoying the emotion that he has. Okay, oh, teach me to forget to think. So he's trying to fight against this masculine behaviour by being in love, but then perhaps he's trying to say that this masculinity might save him from feeling this sadness. I think the best quotation here, though, is probably this top right one. Love is a smoke raised with a fume of sighs. So people can't help but be disappointed with love, okay? Just like he's feeling, and being purged, a fire sparkling in lover's eyes. But he's also got the sense of hope, hence a sense of warmth that you can get from love. Okay, so I'm hoping you guys come up with some of those ideas of how he's becoming more in touch with his emotional side, but then that emotion has kind of led to damage, led to pain. Okay? Alright, so the final thing is I want you to answer this question then. How does Shakespeare present male behaviour in Act 1, Scene 1? Remember, all of this that we've just been talking about is from one scene. All the aggression, all the sexual connotations, all the comments, etc., but also Romeo's comments as well, all from the same scene. So how does Shakespeare present male behaviour in Act 1, Scene 1? And I want you to do this. Discuss language features, any metaphors, I've just discussed a couple. Writer's ideas, intentional purpose, so what is Shakespeare trying to tell us about masculinity, about men in general, how the audience is supposed to feel, okay, in both modern audience and Shakespeare's audience, the Elizabethan audience, meanings of the evidence, and what does the quotation, what does each of the quotations suggest, and then the final thing is make sure you discuss all of the characters listed there: Samson, Gregory, Tybalt, Romeo, and Capulet. You're going to have to go back through. This video to find the quotations to do this. But I'd like you to analyse at least 5 quotations and tell me what is Shakespeare saying about masculinity and about being a man overall. Okay, so think about how the men at the beginning of the scene are represented with their sexual comments and their violence, but then think about how Romeo is presented with his adoration, and his love for Rosaline, and yet he's trying to fight against those emotions. Okay, you can begin with this sentence: Shakespeare presents masculinity as. Okay, I'd like you to spend at least half an hour on this activity. Okay, half an hour. Try to aim to get at least 5 quotations talked about. Okay? Alright, so this is the final activity I want you to do, and half an hour is how long I want you to spend on it. Okay.